Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the March 10th, 2020 GRCC committee meeting. We have two members that are not here with us tonight. We have Brad with us and of course Superintendent Batchelor and Michael Petiti. We're going to start off with administrative remarks.
So I have a couple. We'll start with just a heads up to the community. We're all aware of, I believe, the coronavirus. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's going around, and I wanted to let, since this is a communications committee, let the committee know that there is a web page that we've created on the district's website where we just coincidentally posted a new message about 10 minutes ago in regards to this matter, and I invite anyone who is concerned or interested in knowing, our response to in our next steps to scroll through here and read. You can see how we cleaning methodologies, some resources for staff and families, including our pandemic action plan, as well as some hygiene tips there. So wanted to just draw that quickly to the attention of the committee and the public. Also,
I noticed you did edit my joke off the website version of the letter.
that would just be good for the email only.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we also wanted to discuss the quick update on legislative breakfast. We had a little planning meeting prior to this meeting, and we've decided with the primary and a lot of things going on that it'd be best to move the breakfast to the fall. That's our kind of a tentative plan is the fall. And I know we obviously have the general in November, but we have had it in late September and early October in 2015 and 2016. So there's a precedent for having it in the fall. So we'll, even during a general election in 2016. So we will look to that date instead of the spring. So I wanted to make sure we were all aware of that as well. And I believe there are two upcoming events that I wanted to bring to the attention of the public. One is March 23rd is PSBA's Advocacy Day. And the second, which we'll have time to discuss in our April meeting, is May 17th, DCIU Legislative Breakfast that they host every year, and which could actually be a nice substitute in a way for ours. That's all my admin remarks.
Sorry. Do we have any public comment? No? Seeing none, we'll move to our agenda items.
Okay, so yes, our first item is some background on charter school funding reform and efforts to bring attention to this issue here in the district prior to us moving into the second and third items, which are reviews of resolutions that we may be putting forward for potential adoption from the board. So we thought it would be a good idea to talk about some history here with our action in regards to charter school and cyber charter school funding reform. So I pulled up the website where you can see our resolutions from past years. And you'll notice that we have been active since as far back as April of 2018 as a district and board on passing resolutions having to do with voucher programs for one, which was passed in April of 2018. And then you'll also see one in recent history regarding cyber charter programs from May 28th of 19. Although the one that we'll be talking about tonight in a moment is charter, brick and mortar charters. Still wanted to draw to the attention of the public and the committee that we've had, as you all know, action here for several years, I should say, on this topic. We've also pulled some statistics on the number of charter students that we have. I'd have to, of course, off the top of my head, it's under 15 total. I think it's 12. Combination of both cyber and brick and mortar. I'm pretty sure we only have 2 brick and mortar charter students currently, and this is of most recent date, I think, from February. So while the issue doesn't seem on the surface maybe as impactful here, it's something that we want to be continually aware of, both for our neighboring school districts, and, it does have an impact. I think it's 200 and some $1,000 or so here that, we may be expending currently for, correct me obviously if I'm wrong, but around that number for our charter payments. So if that's a sufficient enough kind of background on where we are with charter schools and the efforts we're making to reform their funding, we can move into the second agenda item, which is a resolution calling for charter school funding reform by the Board of School Directors of Radnor Township School District. And we can actually pull that up and take a look at that. Prior to doing that, of course, we can look at some of the other districts that you can see here on the screen that have passed this exact resolution, which comes from PSBA. PSBA has also compiled a list of the districts. They're in the hundreds, so this is just a sampling. If you can, when you go to our website, click on that link, and it'll take you to an actual ever-changing list of districts that have passed this. So I'll just pull up the potential resolution, and we can look through it and decide if we're comfortable with the wording and we want to move it along.
So I'll defer to you first, Brad.
All right, thank you, Dr. Babson. So thank you for putting this together for us. This resolution, I think it's an important part of advocacy on the behalf of public school districts in the state. One thing I want to emphasize, I don't view this as an anti-charter school resolution. Charter school is an important part of our education system here in the state. Before I was a lawyer, I was a teacher, high school teacher in a charter school in Philadelphia. And on the other hand, though, we've come a long way in Pennsylvania with what the charter school system looks like. There used to be some reimbursement from the state for charter schools that's gone away, and over time, some aspects of the way charter schools have been set up have led to some inconsistencies and irrationalities, really. And so I really view the governor's proposal, which this resolution supports, as a way to bring some consistency and rationality to the way charter schools are reimbursed in our state. And although, as you described, Mr. Rattiti, that the potential current bottom line impact on our district may not be a big amplitude now, this is part of the overall budget for education that the governor has put forward. And I mentioned this briefly in the last general business meeting. A lot of the basic education funding levels that the governor is proposing will go to schools statewide is dependent on this charter school reform package. So overall state funding is tied to this, and so it could very well benefit this district more than just the 12 or 15 students and what their reimbursement rates are to charters. Over a long time under state policy, the basic education funding levels will potentially be better for schools statewide and our district as a result of this funding. So I think this is something we're a supporter, even as someone who's seen charter schools offer a lot of good and a lot of success. But as a matter of state policy, we have a chance to encourage the legislature to support the governor in this way and lead to a nice, rational funding structure.
Great. No, I completely agree that we shouldn't see this as a necessarily anti-charter resolution, but kind of putting it more into context, seeing where we fit in. Also, I like the big picture that you provided there is very helpful. And I think that it's also helpful to see the list of school districts, Michael, that you put together. I think it's helpful for us to see that we're not sort of an outlier in this regard. We're joining a lot of districts around the state that are concerned about this, that are looking at this, but also want to take a big picture view of it as well. So looking at the wording of this resolution, I did not see anything that jumped out at me deserving any particular scrutiny. Did you see anything that you?
I was comfortable with the language.
Okay, thanks. All right, good. So I think we're set to move this forward.
So I will make sure then to take this exact version, and if all goes well with our planning meeting, and it sounds like we're able to move that forward, so it fits on the agenda, we can do that for March. Does that sound doable? Okay. So the next resolution that we are here to discuss again harkens a little bit back to previous resolutions, and this is concerning tuition voucher program, HB 1800, that, again, if you look at it on the surface, it's geared towards Harrisburg, and our superintendent, as well as other superintendents, had previously written a letter to legislators about this exact bill, opposing the bill. Now we're taking the next step to do a resolution. And again, it concerns voucher programs, which, as I mentioned earlier, we have a history of passing resolutions to oppose. And one was back in, again, April of 2018, and that was Senate Bill 2. So I'll pull up that resolution now, and we can discuss moving that one along as well in March.
I'll defer to you again.
Thanks. Again, this fits into the context of the education system we have in our state. Even though it's just about Harrisburg, a member of the public might ask, why is the Radnor School Board putting forward a resolution about something that's for a different school district? And but this does impact us, because this is a potential policy change that would lead to further change down the road in terms of the way schools are funded. And this is also something that our superintendent, in conjunction with other superintendents, has commented on before, and we'd like to support this group of superintendents who has studied this carefully and feels strongly about this issue. And from my work on the Legislative Council since my appointment to that group 2 months ago, there's very strong support for schools in Delaware County to support this as a whole to the extent they're willing to. So, for those reasons, I think this is an appropriate resolution for us to put forward, and send a message to the legislature that we appreciate innovation in education in general, but this particular funding idea is one that probably won't be to the benefit of public schools in the state.
Ken, did you have any comments on this pursuant to the? Okay, good. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that this is a little bit different than the other issue about charter schools. This has a little bit more of a, let's say, could have a, let's say, antithetical to public school kind of vibe to it, or at least sort of questioning, or at least I think this resolution is a little bit more focused on, I would say down at the bottom it talks about something very notable, that Pennsylvania ranks 47th in the nation in regard to state funding for public education. And House Bill 1800 will further deplete the funds available to educate public school students by redirecting taxpayer dollars to unaccountable non-public schools. I think that's a little bit of a summary of this particular resolution. So I think it's congruent with other public resolutions along the lines of what Michael has already said. So. Yep.
Great, so we're 2 for 2, it sounds like. All right, so we'll move that one along too, and see how that plays out in 2 weeks. And then if we're good with those 2 resolutions, we can move into just a quick informational point from Dr. Babson in regards to a summary of the NSBA Advocacy Institute, if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Yes, I have a 10-page summary. Hope you're comfortable.
3 hours.
Yeah. But it's a great opportunity. I mentioned a little bit about it during the business meeting, but every year the National School Boards Association has an event for school board members across the country. And it used to be called the Federal Relations Network Conference, but now it's called the NSBA Advocacy Institute. Takes place around Super Bowl time, end of January, early February. And the purpose is to provide training sessions to school board members from around the country in preparation for meeting with legislators and their staff, usually their staff, on the Hill for an afternoon. And it's a really great event, not just because you are learning a few things over a couple days, but and you're also meeting people from around the country, get a sense of how other districts are dealing with similar issues that you are. But you also get a chance to talk directly with your legislators and their staff, and to have them hear your voice. And so there's a few things that I could delve into, but I'm just going to kind of highlight a few things here. First of all, every year there is a reminder that IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that was passed a very long time ago now, over 40 years ago, is still not well funded. It's not funded up to what it should be. So there's usually that issue that's part of the agenda for the meeting. But there are also yearly focuses that come up. So this year, bridging the digital divide in education was a theme. And I think that's relevant to our discussions about cyber charter schools. Developing 21st century life skills for students through increased investment in public ed was another theme. And that is relevant to charter school legislation. And then creating a safe and healthy school environment, I think, is very relevant for our wellness study, our ongoing wellness initiative and study regarding student physical and mental health. I think our school start time policy change is relevant to that as well. And recent efforts to bring attention to vaping in schools, ongoing concerns about safety, emergency preparedness and response, trauma-informed instruction, all of that can be sort of subsumed under creating a safe and healthy school environment. And then finally, there was a focus on improving teacher recruitment and retention. And I decided to focus on that for my meetings. You know, I thought there are all these different themes. I don't have that much time. I have a few minutes in front of these staff members or legislators. I might as well just choose one issue that I can focus on. And so I chose my training modules in the days, a day or two leading up to that, and then a little bit of preparation for my talks with the legislators on that particular issue, on preparation, recruitment and retention of teachers. What I thought was very interesting was that there is bipartisan legislation going on or in the works right now in both chambers of Congress to address this issue. I was very encouraged by that. So not just in the House, but in the Senate, and not Republican or Democrats, but actually teams of legislators that are focusing on those issues, which is very encouraging. I was also, just on a side note, I did talk with Representative Scanlon's staff, and I did have a chance to meet Representative Scanlon, and she is interested in having further conversations about this particular issue. I was contacted by their staff to be engaged in that. And one reason why I chose this focus is because before the meeting I met with Jenny and George, and I said, hey, tell me what's going on, tell me what's of interest to you, and tell me, what are some concerns that you have, just in general, just a kind of open conversation. And I felt like teacher recruitment and retention was a theme that sort of a general theme that emerged from that conversation. And so I thought it was very productive to both have that conversation, but also to have the training, and then additionally to have these staff conversations. So, so going forward, it's also good to retain these contacts and to see these people again that you see both at the conference actually, but also on the Hill, so that Radnor's on the radar, but also just so in general they have an overall impression of what's important to school districts around the country. So it was time very well spent, and actually I encourage the district going forward to maybe think of different ways that more board members could be involved, maybe a shorter duration trip. PSBA's actually thought about maybe having a one-day trip to bring down, so that it would cut the costs down of having more involvement of school board members. But that's another conversation. But just had a good experience overall, and hopefully those pieces of information were helpful. Thanks. Okay. So, Michael, any other agenda items, comments?
No, I think
Okay.
I'm good.
And one issue, actually, I skipped over something in the agenda sequence here. Must be out of practice. The approval of minutes. I looked over the minutes, they were fine. Mr.
problem.
Moore, good? Thumbs up? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So any new business?
Just two comments. by way of information for the public and everyone, based on your administrative remarks. First, I've heard generally positive feedback to both of you gentlemen, just say about the updates about how we're handling coronavirus. They've appreciated the emails, and it's great to see everything centralized on that website. So thank you for everything you're doing like that. Lots of people have questions, and I think it really helps with all the information you're providing. And in the spirit also, Dr. Babson, of your update, I think you did mention that on March 23rd, we have the PSBA Advocacy Day in Harrisburg. And so some members of this committee, Mrs. Goldman will be going, I'll be attending, and then also Mrs. Duffy will be attending that as well. So we'll have an opportunity, and Mrs. Stern, thank you. We'll have an opportunity to follow along with the model that you set with focusing on what we want to advocate for in the state legislature. And the very charter reform that we talked about with this resolution is going to be one of the focuses on that day. So you can, I expect, look forward to an update on how that went at the next GRCC meeting.
If I can kind of combine both of your bullet points, though, let's hope that the conference does go forward. We'll see, but I was actually going to go to Florida for a conference, but it was canceled. So maybe I'll be able to go to this conference now because it hasn't been canceled yet. We'll see, but thank you for that. Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity. It's sort of a state, like you said, sort of a state version of that national conference. So yeah, it's usually a really nice day.
Great minds think alike. My one comment I wanted to make was I just wanted to thank Mr. Petiti for all his work in, as soon as we started sending out messages, about coronavirus, he quickly put together the website, has worked really hard with the administrative team to put together an FAQ that went live tonight as well, frequently asked questions that we'll continue to update, also an email address, so if parents or community members have questions, they could email that. So I just wanted to thank him for all his efforts to, communicate and keep our community aware of what's going on. And in light of board members attending Advocacy Day, it's just really nice. I just want to thank our board for, these are volunteer positions as board members. I think a lot of people don't realize that. In your volunteer positions, the time that's spent to, while we quickly move through two resolutions, there's a lot of time that all of you spend looking and reviewing and preparing for those documents, and then also now taking the time to actually go and discuss with the legislature these resolutions. So thank you for your efforts and all the board members' efforts on behalf of our community.
I appreciate that. That's great. Yeah, it's our pleasure. Okay. How about any public comment? Seeing none. Wait, seeing no comment or public. We'll move to adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Okay, thank you.